Continuing with the chassis, we're going to build some leaf springs. So let's just select one of the chassis segments, left viewport. Just get a look here. You know, my original reference, they look a little small for me scale-wise, so we're going to just do this on the fly. I'm going to get rid of everything else. I'm going to hide unselected. I'm going to go to P, zoom in. I'm going to take that first section where we have the first cutout, and let's go in, box, auto grid again. We'll use the auto grid feature. And right on top here, we're going to click, drag out a plane, hit F4 if you like to see the wireframe. I think that looks about right as far as the length and width. And just come up, just like that. Okay, so now we have our box. And let's add some segments. 6 that way, 3 that way, maybe 2. Okay. Let's convert that to an editable poly. Drag it up a little bit. And let's clone it. Hold down Shift, and drag that whole mesh down, just like that. Copy is good. Shift, drag it down, just like that. Copy. Okay. Let's scale that down a little bit. Something like that. And shift drag that new copy a little bit smaller down. Okay. These should be roughly touching. They stack and get clamped together. I'm going to shift and drag that down again. Say OK as a copy. Scale it in a little bit. Shift drag down. Copy. And we'll do one more set. Shift and drag. Copy OK. Let's shrink that one down. Okay. And now we want them to feel a little more stepped. So I'm just going to adjust by eye. Just like that. Maybe we'll make this one a touch longer. Okay. This one a touch longer. And so on. Just till they have like a stepping kind of feel. They don't have to be perfect. Let's grab the top one. And now we're going to attach the rest of those meshes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Click off attach. Let's add a bend modifier. Okay. Give a small angle value. Let's do 15 and hit enter. You can see it's not bending the way I want. I want it to be like a smiley face kind of smile. So let's try X. No. Y. Y has the right curve, but it's not in the right direction. So let's try this. Change the direction value to 90. Enter. And you can see there, that's more like what I was hoping for. So that looks good. That's our leaf spring assembly. Now we have to make a little bracket that goes across and attaches it to the frame. So first thing we're going to do is, let's save the file. Okay. And let's go to top viewport. Let's use a plane. I guess we can leave auto grid on. Let's do it right here. Drag it out a little bit wider than we think we need. Okay. Let's get these segments down to 1 and 1. We're going to alter it in a minute anyway. It's right in the middle. It's not quite wide enough, so let's thicken it. Something like that. Give it 2 segments in that direction, maybe 3 in the other. That's perfect. Right click it, editable poly. Let's move it up a little bit. Okay. Edge. Let's take these edges and get them closer, just a little bit. Same on this side. Shift them in. Let's select all 4 of those edges. Let's do a chamfer. A little bit less of a value. That looks good. It's 0.39 inches. Okay, and now let's get the end set of edges on each end, and let's shift drag those down. A small shift drag first, slightly longer. Let's keep that spacing uniform. And maybe one more time. That looks good. Okay. Above the edit poly, if we hit S 5 times, there's a shell. We don't need 4 segments. Let's do 2. And let's do it in the opposite. There we go. Now you see the corners look a little crooked. You can come down here and straighten corners. Sometimes it doesn't have a great effect, and sometimes it works. It's working fine right there. Save your file again. And I think I'm going to pause the video right now. We're going to make another linkage that has a pivot here and goes around the bottom of the frame, and we'll continue with that. First, let's call this spring bracket 1. And let's make sure we also name the springs, which we didn't do. Springs-01. Save it once again. Let's select this clamp, this bracket that we built earlier. Zoom in. And you'll notice that there's a little space between the springs and the edge of the bracket. So we're going to come down here to vertex. Show end result is toggled on, which is what we want. F3. Let's grab those vertices. Move that in a little bit, just like that. Let's repeat that process on the inner side. Just tuck that down a little bit. That's perfect. Okay. Let's save our file. Now let's clone this bracket. We're going to clone it down as a copy because we're going to modify it to a different shape. And now we're going to mirror it along the Y. No, I'm sorry, the Z. Okay. I'm going to shift that down. We're going to scale it, make it a wider piece. That looks good. Okay. We're also going to scale it outward because the frame is a little wider than what we were dealing with before. Might have to move a little bit. Make adjustments as you go. Touch more width. Okay. Left viewport. Let's take some of these verts. F3. I'm going to take these. This whole set of the bottom, we're going to move them down so that they go around this little opening. Okay, perspective again, F3, that looks better. Let's grab not only that clamp, the other clamp and the springs as well. Let's center it right in the center of this opening. Doesn't have to be perfect, but close. Okay, that looks good. We'll come back to this clamp that we're building. Let's go down to the edit poly, and above that, hit E in the rollout, edit poly, edge. Let's select the center edge, Alt and L to loop select. We want to chamfer that a little bit. Right click, and let's just do that by hand. That looks good. Let's add one more segment. That's perfect. Click the check for OK. Let's grab 4 edges, 2 here, 2 here, and let's shift drag those upward. Shift drag them upward again. That looks very good. Go to vertex, select the center vertex, both sides. Let's chamfer that vertice, or that vertex selection, I'm sorry. That looks good. Polygon, let's select that one and this one. Let's go to loops, or no, let's go to polygons, GeoPoly. Click on GeoPoly. You'll see it change the shape. Because it's an oblong area around that, it won't make a perfect circle, but GeoPoly is great for making circles out of squares that you create with chamfer. So I'm just going to do it by eye. That looks good on both sides. Now we'll go to local and scale it upward. Okay, we're going to delete those 2 polys. We'll do border selection. Select both borders. Chamfer. Let's right click that one. Just a very small chamfer. Right there looks good. Maybe a little bit less. That's a good value. Okay. Let's go back up to the top of the stack. And you can see we have an opening. Let's up the iterations of Turbo Smooth to 2. That looks like what I was hoping for. The last thing we're going to do is go to left viewport. Going to make a cylinder primitive, standard primitive, cylinder. Auto grid is on, that's fine. We're going to click right in the middle of this opening, drag out a cylinder, click back, There we have it. F3 so we can see what it looks like. And let's do this. F3, adjust the height value so that you have one cylinder that goes from one end to the other. There's no need to have two meshes. So just like that, we have two ends but with one mesh. Right click, edit poly, select the end polygons on both sides. We're going to come up here to the selection icons, hold down Control, click on Edge, and chamfer. Right click that value to zero it out, slowly slide it up. That looks good. Check mark for OK. Okay, let's roll out. Put a smooth modifier on top of that. Smooth, auto smooth. Let's take a look. Okay, save your file. F3. We want to select this whole assembly now, which we have. Go to left viewport. And let's just clone that down the line. Shift and drag. Let's say instance, that's one. Another. And one more. Okay. And perspective viewport. F3 to see what it looks like. It looks very good. I'm going to leave it to you to copy these sets of springs and put them onto the other side of the chassis. They go in the same location. It's as simple as selecting them all, cloning them to the other side, and we'll pick up in the next video where we left off. I think in the next video we'll be moving on to maybe possibly making some hardware in the hardware layer. So I'll see you then.